short interruption. I believe it
Okay.
might be a new event, but we should be able to still see the stream through the same channels as we've set up before.
Awesome. So everyone, we're gonna start this over again because I'm not sure what made it live and what didn't make it live. But everyone, welcome to Manufacturing Hub. As we were saying before, we had a slight interruption. We're talking all about edge devices, edge ecosystems, and we're very excited to do this in September. So Vlad and I had a conversation with Chris and John over at Siemens, and we were talking about how IoT is great, but we're putting more processing power down at the machine and plant levels for a variety of reasons, right? And so I think we were about 45 minutes or an hour into the conversation. We're like, yes, we need to explore this more. So we're talking all about the edge ecosystem in the month of September, which we're excited for. Again, thank you to Siemens for sponsoring September. I will say, as I said before we got interrupted, if you guys have questions or thoughts on edge ecosystem, please feel free to, or kind of anything edge, right? Please feel free to drop them in the comments of the event. If we don't get to them during the live show, we will absolutely come back and chat about them in the comments with you guys afterwards. And as we're doing that, Chris, you may or may not know, but Vlad runs a popular YouTube channel, Solus PLC. 32.9 thousand subscribers. So we want to say hi to the couple hundred folks that watch us every week on Solus PLC. Thank you guys for joining us. And again, let's slightly embarrass Vlad by asking people to subscribe to Solus PLC. So we're at 33,000 subscribers.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Of course. Before the month of September, Chris, I like to joke that Vlad refused to ask for subscribers, so here we are 77 times in it, and I'm the one asking people to subscribe. But everyone has to have their role in this show, and that is mine, and I am more than happy to do it. If you guys want to see more of Manufacturing Hub, please feel free to check out manufacturinghub.live. We'll go ahead and throw the link kind of everywhere, and you're probably tired of listening to me hear about it. We've got a great reminder email that comes out about an hour before the show with kind of a recap of everything. We've got the live shows on Wednesdays that the reminder comes out for, and then we have we've got the podcasts that drop on Thursdays, and you guys can again feel free to catch those wherever you listen to podcasts. But without further ado, officially, everyone, welcome to Manufacturing Hub with me, Dave, and this guy up here, Vlad. We are talking to Chris Liu of Siemens, and we are talking all about edge ecosystems. So, Chris, without further ado, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the introduction, Dave, and thanks, Vlad, for having me today. So, hi everyone, the fans from Manufacturing Hub and Solus POC. Good afternoon. So, in the next 50 minutes, I'm going to talk a little bit about edge computing, which is most discussed heated topics in the manufacturing industry, as well as the Siemens edge computing technology, which is a brand new Siemens edge computing technology called Industrial Edge. But before we jump into that, I would like to give you a brief self-introduction about myself. So again, my name is Chris Liu. So I joined Siemens actually less than 9 months ago, last December. So I'm still new with the company, but I'm so lucky to enjoy this Siemens DIFA marketing team. Yeah, it's an amazing team, amazing atmosphere with amazing products for factory automation. And so I graduated from Purdue University with my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, and I started as a electrical engineer with converter concept in professional lighting industry, where I design, get involved in the entire manufacturing process of building like professional light fixtures, the drives inside the fixture, the power supplies. So we're getting a lot of experience and exposures to manufacturing process, engineering process, R&D, and customer support. Yeah. So just a little bit background of myself. And actually, starting 2020, everyone knows COVID-19 hits the world so bad, and so is the professional lighting industry. all the shows, the concerts, tours were all canceled. So at that time, I started thinking, hey, maybe it's a good time for me to switch my career. And as a big fan of IT, the cloud computing, edge computing, I found this interesting position available at Siemens. And personally, I'm based out of Orlando, Florida, which is not too far from our FA hub in Alpharetta, Georgia. So yeah, again, glad to enjoy the big family, the FA marketing family. And back to you, Dave.
Chris, if I can throw in a question, I'm curious about the learning curve specifically, within this new role, and more, I would say, like globally when it comes to edge devices. I think that having a background in electrical engineering is definitely a very good opportunity to go into something like edge computing. But what are your thoughts around having also a strong like base in software? I'm wondering if you were taught that in college, if you think that again someone with a pure computer science background would be suitable for such a role. Like, what are your general thoughts? Because I think a lot of, I want to say, like our listeners, and I want to say like early career engineers are also looking into other opportunities, and they
Mm-hmm.
might shy away from, again, something like edge computing because it sounds like there's a lot of programming involved, it's software heavy. Like, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, me personally, I don't come from a very, software or programming focused background. But even though I also did, in my senior design at Purdue, we have to do a lot of, programming simulation with MATLAB, also with like Altium, like those PCB designs, which you have to do a lot of, simulations. So that's why, I choose.
Well, I guess we have lost Chris for just a moment. But yeah, I guess like Dave, I'm just curious because again, I've spoken to a lot of electrical engineers who are looking at different roles, especially as Chris had mentioned during the pandemic, there
Mhm,
was a bit of uncertainty of where the industry was going to go. And talking about manufacturing specifically, I think there's so many different kind of areas to
mhm.
So
explore, and
Edge is
sometimes
kind of like the platform. And can you hear me?
we lost you for a moment.
Yep, we
Sorry,
just
guys.
got you back.
Yeah, forgive me because I mean like Central Florida.
Mhm.
There's a thunderstorm going on in this area, so that's why probably. Yeah, but yeah, like I think I started with the definition of edge, right?
Mhm.
So edge is actually like the perfect platform that bridges IT and OT.
Okay.
So, I come from a like hardware background, more like
Mhm,
hardware background. So Edge is like the perfect product or technology that integrates, the IT, OT, the shop floor, the production line with those, cutting edge IT technology or IT applications use cases.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And like I was trying to say while you were gone, I think that offers a lot of opportunities to like electrical engineers, and I would say someone on the software side to kind of branch out onto like these areas that kind of combine both. But obviously, there
Yes.
is a learning curve, right? It's not a,
There,
I want to say the
yeah,
combination of two is an opportunity, but it's also a bit more challenging than, let's say, in a traditional, let's say, like pure hardware role or pure software. So you have to be fairly good in both. But Chris, if I may, to start us off this month, I think the biggest question
mhm,
of all, and I
mhm.
I mentioned this to you yesterday. I've made a post on LinkedIn, asking what is an edge device, what is edge computing, how do people define that, and I got a variety of answers. I don't think there's like a clear definition. Could you share with
Mhm.
us, what you and Siemens have developed, or how do you envision an edge device? What are the criterias?
Of course, yeah. So I would say, as of right now, there's not a solid definition. Like the definition of edge computing is still kind of blurry.
mhm,
A lot of people call edge device is just an IoT gateway, collect data and push data to the cloud.
mhm,
But at Siemens, like us, Siemens edge computing, we vision the edge computing as a distributed like computing paradigm. So the core value of edge computing is actually bring the data handling including like data collection, data management, and data storage closer to where the data is generated, meaning closer to the device. It could be CNC machines, to your POCs, at your production line. So again, the core value is localization of the data management. So that means Edge can achieve higher data acquisition rate. So from my knowledge, cloud computing, we can do maybe seconds or 10 seconds, but to achieve like milliseconds data acquisition rate, this is where Edge can step in and shine. So we've been we also get a lot of feedbacks from our customers, right? In factory automation space, in US manufacturing, different industries. So they care most, these customers, they care most about, manufacturing, the efficiency, availability, and reliability. So a lot of people was comparing edge computing to cloud computing. Hey, it's just like edge computing is like a subset of cloud computing. But for us, for Siemens, like we consider edge is different. It's a different beast. It's a separate platform, separate technology compared to cloud. So you can do a lot of things using edge. It can be used, for different use cases, for like we said earlier, for OEE, for your production, your machine analysis. It can also enable digital twin, which is virtual representation of physical machines, production line, which can enable the optimizations of the entire product lifecycle, not just from the manufacturing process, but also from the engineering phase, the design phase. So that can also save the manufacturer, the plant, a lot of time and effort. And apart from that, with the development of 5G network, with increasing numbers of smart devices, POCs, machines, the data generated from these machines are increasing like massively. So how are this traditional manufacturers they're going to be able to handle this increasing amount of data? That's also a challenge. So that's why we introduce Industrial Edge, which can be also a platform where you can pre-process this data before you push them to your local server, or you have to spend a lot of time and cost by pushing them to a public cloud server where you start doing the IT computing analysis.
And Chris, allow me to maybe like unbundle that a little bit. I have a couple of questions on like particular applications, and maybe to start off, like I know, for example, once you start collecting a lot of data, obviously it's a lot faster to get it into your edge device than process it there. Obviously, discard what's perhaps not needed or is not important, and then you push that to your server, and that helps you, I would say, like, one, save you on the bandwidth costs, right? But also, I guess, like, on bandwidth in general. It would save you if you have, let's say, like an AWS cloud or Azure or GCP, obviously on the costs of the number of data points transmitted, but also in case of like downtime, or I would say like outages of your ISP, or if you're working in like oil and gas where those outages, I would say, like, are more relevant than a massive manufacturing plant. Obviously, it
Yep.
helps you kind of buffer the data, right? But
Yes.
you're also saying that we're doing like some processing, right, for the process. So if I understand like that layout correctly, you have an edge device that collects some data, buffers it, then sends very specific, like it would send some information to the cloud and then process some like inside of the like compute module at the edge and then control the process as well, or is it influencing the process? Like what's an application, I guess, in that sense?
Okay, so if you're talking about like the data flow, right? So the data generated at the machine. So you can, so you don't, so the benefits of edge computing is you don't have to touch your existing production line, meaning you just simply add edge device to your manufacturing plant. So the edge device, can talk to your POC, can talk to your CNC machines, collect data, and so far, our industrial edge platform can support, I think, over over 10, 12 different protocols, including OPC-UA, our S7 connectors, also Modbus, TCP, a lot of different protocols. So we're trying to build this ecosystem. And after that, after you collect the data, so the data can either be stored on the edge device itself, and then it also enables this data buffering. And then you can, so it is really up to you if you want to run some edge applications on premises in real time on the edge device. Or you can also, pre-process this data, filter those data, and only send your desired data to the cloud platform. And right now, we are also supporting pretty much all the hyperscaler cloud platforms, like you just mentioned, AWS, Microsoft.
GCP was going to be
Google
the third
platform,
one.
Siemens cloud platform. Yeah, GCP. Yeah, but some information for you guys. So maybe you are already aware of. So GCP will, like, their IoT core platform will be shut down, I think, next year in June. So
I thought that was Azure.
also,
I thought Azure had shut down their IoT, but both also Google Cloud is going the same route.
I think it's GCP. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, I think it's GCP. And so that also creates some gaps. Hey, is there going to be like a seamless transfer migration from Google Cloud to another platform? So that puts a really big question mark. And also another question: do we really need a hyperscaler cloud again? And then you also push all the manufacturing data to the cloud. So that's where we introduce edge. That can be the layer between the shop floor and the cloud. So that saves you bandwidth, saves you cost of data storage, as well as you pretty much you own the data. When we talk about like data ownership, if you push to the cloud, right? If there's a cybersecurity, cyber attack, there's a cloud server outage, then there's no way you can get the data immediately when you need those data. But if we keep the data, like locally in your edge device, so it is really up to you. You have the full control of the data generated at your production site.
Yeah, and I would assume it would be smart to kind of have like a backup, right? Especially if it's like a mission critical application, you have a way. Again, I think like buffering is almost like an obvious statement at this point, but you're keeping the data so that if there is an outage, you can still kind of like rely on when it reconnects and it's able to send the data. But obviously, to some degree, you can process it and use it internally as needed. We have a good question, Chris, if I may throw it in from Zach from the comments on LinkedIn. And I think, before I read like the question, I think it's an interesting solution because ultimately who's going to be looking at these edge devices the most right now, it's OEMs, systems integrators, and I want to say like consultants in the automation space, right? Because I think they're the ones who are going to provide the solution to the end user. So the question is, with the edge being such a dynamic and rapidly evolving market, what advice would you have for small to medium sized OEMs and machine builders that are looking to pick the right connection, I guess the right platform for the long term viability of the edge space? So maybe like in general, like what should they be looking for? Maybe what kind of features? Interesting to hear your thoughts on the hardware and software as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, that's a very, very good question from Zach. So that actually brings up the next topic about the IoT ecosystem. So there's a lot of edge device or data gateway devices already in the market, but we are like industrial edge, Siemens edge computing is totally different. So it combines. We understand both the edge hardware and those applications we talk about. They have to be industrial grade in order to satisfy the OEMs, the requirements from OEMs, from machine builders. But we're talking about an ecosystem. You can consider Siemens as a platform provider, and we embrace our integrators, solution partners, or if you are an app developers, you can also bring your own applications, and we can help you to Dockerize those applications to edge. And more specifically, to answer, if the small OEMs, if you are ready to start your IoT, your Industry 4.0 journey, then edge computing is definitely like the stepstone that can connect your shop floor, and also offer you some more computing powers. And here we're not just talking about sending data to the cloud. We're talking about how to manipulate, how to manage, how to analyze this data to increase your production efficiency, to reduce your machine downtime, and to increase your profits overall. And I believe for some small OEMs, you may maybe not have enough staff or enough resources. For example, some OEMs, you may have just hardware engineers. You don't have too much IT knowledge, program skills. So that's fine. Edge computing, edge platform can enable, can bring those IT benefits to the shop floor. So you can just simply clicking on the apps on your edge device, and just one click that can do everything that those applications on cloud they can do. So that brings you the computing power.
Yeah, I think that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Vlad, if I may kind of tag on to Chris's answer, I think that it's really good. I think especially for smaller companies, if there is the need to have a platform or to have kind of one ecosystem, I think that could be very important for some use cases. I would say kind of on the broader strokes, look at hardware that doesn't have an end of life within the next year or 2 years. So I was having a conversation with a group 3 or 4 months ago, and they were sold an edge or an IoT device, right? And someone picked a singular sensor, right? It wasn't necessarily the correct sensor for the application, but beyond that, 3 months later, when they got back to go try to buy more of these, they were told that the sensor is, end of life, right? So they couldn't purchase the same sensor that they had done all of their testing off of. So they had to go find another piece of hardware, right? So first and foremost, I would say find hardware that has the long term that you're going to be able to buy substantially the same thing for the long term. And then on the software side, whether you are doing the programming and Dockerizing it or you're not, again, look for a solution that has longevity, whether you purchase it or whether you build it off of someone's platform or otherwise. There are a number of companies. Who go roll something up. It works really well for 2 or 3 years, and then they kill it for whatever reason, especially in the consumer space, right? So as I think of the consumer space, I think of Google, right? So Google has this history of going and building software that I love, and then going and killing the software. Well, I think it's still perfectly reasonable and or the best piece of software out there. So just be cognizant of what you're purchasing into to make sure that it has the longevity, because most OEMs that I know don't want to go through this process every 2, 3, 5 years. Most of them kind of want to go through the process and just have an upgrade path and continue to buy the things for the rest of the time that they're going to be there. But no, I think that's a really good comment from Zach. Chris, I want to actually take it back a little bit to something that you had mentioned earlier, right? So you had mentioned that the theory behind edge devices and edge solutions is that you don't have to kind of go in and reconfigure everything in the line. And you mentioned an S7 connector, right? So is kind of the theory of you take like an S7 1500, you put some, we'll call it software on it, and it just mirrors all the data that comes out of the S7 into one of the edge devices, and now you have all of the machine information?
So yeah, that's a good point. So actually, we are also like visioning all the edge device as we sort them as edge dedicated devices, meaning they have more computing power. They can do a lot of stuff. They can do a lot of data analysis. You can run digital twin in real time on an edge dedicated device. And so far, we have 3 dedicated edge IPCs. And as I said, industrial edge is highly scalable. So for that, if you are a small OEMs, you also have to consider the cost associated, right? So edge could be a more economic solution for you compared to cloud computing or compared to the other infrastructure as a service solution. Yeah. And then just back to your question, Dave. So PLC, like Siemens PLC S7-1500 or our Siemens HMI panels, they are also like edge enabled devices, meaning have this edge industrial edge runtime or industrial edge OS. It's a Linux Debian based OS environment. So we can actually just install the OS or add another module on the POCs or on the HMI panels. So all these Siemens devices, like so far Siemens factory automation devices, they can be centrally managed by one industrial edge management plan. That's like a central plan to control all the hardware, all the devices. So if you have one production line and you only have like 6 machines and you need maybe 3 or 4 edge device, that's fine. But if you also want to scale up, you have global sites and you want to central manage all the devices at different production lines or at different sites, this can also be achieved by using one edge platform that is Siemens Industrial Edge.
Chris, I wanted to clarify 2 things based on that answer. I guess so. Out of the box, the like S7-1500, for example, it doesn't have the Edge OS, right? Like that's an additional. It's not a hardware module. It's just I guess like a container that you can deploy on the PLC. Correct.
Correct. There's a technology module TMFP, which is like also like a new technology, a new module. It's a multifunction processor that it can be added as a module on the S7-1500 series. So then it enables the edge functionality, meaning if you have a like lightweight applications, then you can get that Dockerized, and then you can also make the use of the application on the S7 POC.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And there was a question from Lewis. He said that you've answered the question, but I wanted to unpack that a little bit more. So when it comes to the applications, right? And I want to say like that's one of the concerns that you often hear about platforms like Node-RED, right? So I'm assuming you're familiar with Node-RED. And the concern is that there's a lot of modules and kind of libraries developed by third parties, and as Dave mentioned, can sometimes just stop being supported, or there's a new revision of Node-RED that's released and it becomes again like unsupported or just not functional. How are the apps managed within the Siemens like platform? Is that something that Siemens provide? Does it work with third-party vendors? Is it if I buy one of these edge modules, I can build like my own app on top of that? How does that like landscape work? If you could kind of elaborate on that a little bit more.
Of course. So like we embrace all the app developers to create your own app, and our main task is to support these app developers to bring their applications to get those apps Dockerized, because we have a Docker engine installed on our edge IPCs, our edge devices. And there's a industrial edge app publisher, a different software like equipping the industrial edge management system. So when the app developers, they have their Dockerized app ready to go on edge platform, so then we can support them migrate their apps to this industrial edge app publisher platform, and then they can then further either publish it in our global edge marketplace, where they can also sell their own apps and make monetary values. They can make money out of their own apps, or they can just simply deploy their own created apps in their own edge device. So this is very easy, very simple to implement.
That was going to be my next.
Chris,
go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say, Chris, just a clarification. So the app development and that you're talking about, the platform, that is MindSphere, correct, or is that something else?
No. So that is also part of the future of Industrial Edge. It's called
Okay.
Industrial Edge App Publisher.
Okay.
It's a software. It's a feature of Industrial Edge. It's platform. There's nothing to
Okay.
do with MindSphere. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
no
And
problem.
Chris, I guess like to clarify, I had a question, I guess, on the monetization aspect of how the platform works, right? So obviously it's my understanding that you have to buy the hardware. Is there any, let's say like development licenses like you would find in like traditional PLC and HMI development, or it's purely once you, I guess, purchase certain apps and certain apps would be free and then you could build your apps on top of that? How does that work? And again, obviously I'm not trying to get the actual numbers, but just I'm curious how it would work
Uh-huh.
for again for like a small OEM, because I'm assuming we're gonna get those questions. What does the
That's
pricing model look like?
yeah, that's a great question. So we know, for those IT-driven startups or IT-driven companies, they don't have too much OT knowledge. That's why we also have a virtual version of Edge device. It's called Industrial Edge Virtual Device. It is already available for purchase on Siemens Digital Exchange, the Industrial Edge Marketplace. It is a subscription-based device, meaning you have to pay like certain cost like annually, and then you can keep the license, you can keep using it. And so all you need is just to like a PC, and then you can run like install the virtual device in your VM virtual machine, and that is very straightforward. And other than that, you can just once you develop your own applications, then you can start get them Dockerized and then push that to the virtual device. So you don't have to worry about, hey, do I need to order hardware and then get them hooked up and plugged in to anywhere. So that saves those app developers, those IT companies, also a lot of efforts and time.
Yeah, I think that I think that makes sense. That's kind of what Apple has done with the iPhone way back when. So I really like that model, because my assumption again is that you can scale as your application grows. So right, so if you have a
Exactly.
fairly small like skid, and if you're only drawing like a few data points and you're not processing that much, then I'm assuming you're gonna need like less powerful hardware, obviously, but kind of like more
Mhm.
basic applications. Versus if someone
Yes.
wants to kind of get an edge device for the entire plant, it's gonna scale with the processing.
Yep.
Um,
That's correct.
if I may ask, so we've talked about certain applications, and I think like in general, what edge devices are capable of and what they're usually used for. Is there maybe kind of like very specific scenarios you want to share with us, or really interesting like applications of edge devices that you've seen? Obviously, without mentioning any company names, but I'm just curious if you're seeing something that's maybe a little bit more innovative, a little bit like different outside of the box thinking.
Of course. So maybe one use case highlight is the visual inspection analysis, right? So we know, usually like those video data, it's huge, it's a massive amount of data, and so like in vertical farming, we help one customers like they successfully like install our edge devices, and so this edge device is connected with their OPC server, local OPC server in the plant. And also, it is successfully installed to collect data from their like checkware machines and the sealing machines. So it talks to like 2 to 3 different protocols. And actually, they're actually not using our Siemens POCs. So they're actually using our competitors' POCs. So that's why we're also trying to deliver this message. Hey, Industrial Edge is the right product, the stepstone to build an ecosystem. And so there's also like huge amount of video data in their local server. So use with our Industrial Edge technology, they can pre-process this data, filter those undesired data out, and then send the data to they're using AWS cloud for further either data storage or data analysis. So
So
this
they're
is
doing image processing on the edge.
yeah. Well, there's a vision analysis app. So it can actually filter out some unused or some anomaly data, and then it can help the users to largely reduce the undesired amount of data.
That's very interesting. Dave, do you
Mhm.
have? I know
Interesting.
that you work with many manufacturers. Do you have interesting like edge, maybe examples?
So I actually want to get to examples as the next segment, Vlad. But if I don't thank Siemens right now, we're going to be 90 minutes into this, and we're going to remember that we didn't thank them properly. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to go thank Siemens for sponsoring September. I think Vlad is going to play a really cool video over this. If you guys are listening to this in podcast form, we'll go ahead and drop the link to the video as I go ahead and talk, and you guys can go listen to it. So is data being generated or excuse me so data is being generated continuously on your shop floor? Are you benefiting from it, or would you like a faster and easier way of analyzing your data so that you can acquire valuable insights? Siemens Industrial Edge will help you get the most out of your production data and optimize your machine and plant availability and performance. It also gives machine builders the opportunity to develop new service strategies and business models. Industrial Edge represents an open, ready to use edge computing platform consisting of edge devices, edge apps, edge connectivity, and an application and device management infrastructure. It makes it easier to collect and analyze data from industrial resources, enables a faster and more reliable rollout of the apps on the shop floor, and provides central management for devices and apps with maximum scalability. And there's no need to intervene in the existing automation system, which personally I think is a huge selling point, right? So you guys can go check more of that out with the Siemens Industrial Edge, and then it's a very long link. So we will go ahead and drop it in the links below, or you guys can, if you're watching this live, go to Siemens and search Industrial Edge or Industrial Edge platform, and find more of that. So again, we want to thank Siemens for sponsoring the edge ecosystem theme, and Chris for being on here. So Chris, but before we jump in and talk more about kind of specific use cases, did you have anything else that you want to add from us and kind of this industrial edge platform from the Siemens perspective, or perhaps kind of the future and the roadmap that you guys I know are continuously working on?
Of course, yeah. So we talked about edge dedicated devices. It's highly scalable, right? So we actually have this IPC 127E, which can be simply used as a data gateway. It talks to over 10 different kinds of protocols. Also talks to all the other hyperscaler cloud platforms. And then we have this 227E, IPC 2227E, which we call it like nanobox, where you can run some lightweight edge applications. For example, like performance insight, machine insight, which comes with this OEE functionalities, simple dashboarding, display the KPIs where the users wants to see. It can be their machine running status or the production output. So it is very straightforward, very very easy to use. And then we also have this 427E microbox. It is probably so far our most powerful edge box, and you can run some AI focused applications. For example, anomaly detection, live twin we just discussed. You can load over. So right now this live twin on edge is supporting over 100 different simulation models. So you can just simply load the simulation models to live twin on a 427E. So moving forward, we're also going to have some rack edge IPCs where you can install multiple our industrial edge virtual devices. So we're really talking about a highly scalable platform. And sometimes we just call, since today's like Apple event day, so usually we compare the edge boxes to an iPhone. Right?
Yep.
We have iPhone 14 Pro, Basic, Plus, or whatever, simple. We also have, our Edge 127, 227, 427, and the 847, which is the rack IPC. So if you're looking for a highly scalable economic solution with, some IT computing power, data analysis, industrial edge could be your best option.
I love that, and I love kind of the kind of parallelism to the Apple devices as I was going through and as we talk about these, right? So
Mhm.
I've used a lot of Apple consumer or prosumer devices to kind of push information out to humans on the floor, kind of in the edge space. And I have found, I found a couple of things, right? If they have information that they can act on immediately, then generally once you get in the rhythm of this is what we're doing, people are going to act on that immediately. But I've also found that if there is lag or stuff doesn't work or we goes and takes 2 months to set it up, or it works in like 50% of the line, but 50% of the line we don't have cellular service or Wi-Fi service and it doesn't work, then those are real productivity and other killers. And so I have seen kind of as we talk about the value of edge, right? That is the value of kind of many of these other systems is to have what you need at the machine.
Right.
And most of the time, you're not going to get significant, you're not going to get a significant productivity or optimization bump by throwing it up in the cloud, pulling it down 5 minutes later or 20 minutes later after it processes and comes back down than you would by giving someone pretty good or really good information instantly. So that is, I think that's a really good parallelism with that. And I'm interested to kind of talk more. But as you were talking about that, I was looking for so Colm. So Colm Gavin was on episode 40, right? And so we talked about digital twin and we talked about virtual commissioning. So I wanted to make sure to throw out episode 40. If you guys haven't listened to that from the end of last year, that was an amazing conversation that we had. Colm knows so much about digital twin, right? So I think we spent basically the entire time talking about digital twin and virtual commissioning. So, and I feel like live twin it's a very good parallelism to the little bit of digital twin that we're talking about here. But I want to kind of to what Vlad alluded to a few minutes ago, talk about a couple of examples. So Chris, do you guys have a good example, case study or otherwise that we can kind of talk through as to where the edge devices and the edge ecosystems kind of helped a company?
Of course, yeah. So like we have a few like successful stories, like in both like vertical farming and also like vertical automotive. So we have this big, very big automotive manufacturer to successfully implement and install our industrial edge in some of their not just one single one, but some more multiple their sites in US. And right now we're also at this replication phase. They're going to like install edge at their site plant in different regions. So what we do is they have our edge 127Es like running locally on premises to get the data out from like their stamping machines, their like assembly lines. And then they also, so those big companies sometimes they're concerned about like cybersecurity, and that's one of the benefits from edge computing. We don't need internet actions. We don't need network to the cloud. So this data is collected like on premises, like in milliseconds from their machines, and then those data were also pushed from the edge devices to their local server. And now, since Dave, you mentioned like Colm Gavin, who's also a brilliant brilliant person, and we also have a lot of collaborations bringing this digital enterprise, virtual commissioning, IIoT, this topic out together. So this company, our customer is also considering running like performance insight, which I just mentioned earlier, the plant OEE. So you're not just looking at a status of a machine, but you're also looking at multiple production lines running at the same plant. However, we also have this performance insight app available on Siemens Cloud called MindSphere. So right now we are also trying to bundle MindSphere and Edge together and see if we can create some more values by implementing both Edge and MindSphere, because we have this MindSphere connector already available on the edge platform. So it actually synchronizes the data from the edge platform to the cloud platform. So that's even faster. So that can be used to realize on premises real time data. And we discussed earlier, like live twin, digital twin. The core value is to update the virtual object by using those real time data. So with the combination with the bundle of both edge platform and MindSphere cloud platform, then there's also a lot of more opportunities that can be deployed, that can be realized.
Chris,
No,
I have a
absolutely. I
Go ahead, Dave. Go
was
ahead.
going to say I think that's a great example. I was going to go share an example or two, but Vlad, if you've got a question specifically for Chris, please go ahead.
I guess we'll take a slight tangent before you back with your, I guess, example, Dave. But Chris, I want to ask, so in my experience, again, edge devices and anything that's involved with, let's say, like cloud data processing is typically a bit more oriented towards IT. As we discussed, there's an overlap and kind of a bridge between IT and OT, right? Because
Mhm.
ultimately we're collecting data from field devices. So my question, I guess, first of all, to you is, who do you see mostly being involved in these projects? But also, because again, like I think a lot of our listeners and also a lot of my personal connections are going to be coming from the OT or automation space. How can they
Mhm.
get the knowledge necessary to kind of bridge the gap, right? Is there maybe like a training that Siemens provides when it comes to like edge devices? Is there a training on like MindSphere? How can someone who's been used to working on, again, like PLC and HMI programming sort of
Mhm.
get to the next level? Someone who understands that there's value there, but doesn't necessarily have the maybe the technical skills and know-how yet to kind of maybe lead some of those projects.
Of course. Yeah. So usually, most people like coming from, the IT part, like IT specialists, they will be like more heavily involved in, some of this projects using more sophisticated applications. But at Siemens right now, we really, offer this edge dedicated 3-day virtual training session. It's called C-Train. It is with the cost, but that is a 3-day virtual training session led by our very knowledgeable edge instructors. So all the topics related to edge platform, from the basics, essentials, from installation to even like app development, app creation. Those are all will be covered during the 3-day training session. However, there's also some already available public resources related to industrial edge. It's called industrial-edge.io. This is a website that is designed by Siemens people. So if you just Google it, there are actually 3 different sections. One of them is for, I think, plant operators. So that will cover the functionality. How do you use edge? And then there's also a section for app developers. So we're not trying to build this edge ecosystem on our own from Siemens side. That's why we strongly encourage, if you have some cool applications, if you are an app developers, app providers, we can help you, we can support you to bring your own applications to edge. So that section is mainly about Docker, about what are the functionalities is available on edge to expedite the migration process. And I believe there's also a section, just a general section, which you can get to know the updates, the latest status update about industrial edge. So what's new, what's in the roadmap, what's going to be available in the next couple weeks, couple months. So if just to keep refreshing our knowledge about edge platform.
Interesting. I've shared the link, by the way, for those of you who are live on LinkedIn and YouTube. But if you're watching us later on, these links will be posted on our website in case you want to check out some of these resources.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. No, I think those are some really great resources. Thank you for that, Chris. So a couple of examples of kind of edge in my experience, and where I've particularly seen them pay off, right? So one, kind of alluding to Vlad's former comment of oil and gas. It's not actually an oil and gas example. It is a landfill example, right? So I did some work with a large county out in California a number of years ago. They had something like 20 landfills, right? And so because it's out in central California or northern California, there are a bunch of canyons and other things, and they certainly had issues trying to connect everything, and it was pretty much we'll call it an IPC at the site, and then it kind of bounced around a whole bunch of radios, and sometimes there's good cellular signal to get out, and sometimes there's less than good cellular signal to get out, and so we actually had everything compute on the edge device, right? It was fairly simple computations, but we had all of the values and everything compute on the edge devices. And then, as Chris was mentioning earlier, it kind of had store and forward and other backup features so that we could make sure that it goes out, it pings the servers, right? There was a heartbeat back to the central server, so we could confirm that we had it. And I think because of how little data we were kind of sending and calculating, it had multiple weeks of data that it could go ahead and store. And so if you get a week or a week and a half in and something catastrophic has happened, you could in theory go send someone out to pull it back. And so we had done that, and there was a central server. I believe it was cloud-based, kind of as one of Chris's earlier examples had said, and it was pushing all of those 24 or so facilities to the central server, and then it significantly reduced the number of people who had to show up on site, because that as long as something catastrophic didn't happen to the IPC, in which case I imagine that we would all hopefully know that something catastrophic had happened on site, that there would not be any issues moving forward. And so that was very good. There were multiple times over kind of the proof of concept and early phases in which they would lose connectivity via radio or cell phone for 6 to 36 hours, because that was a fairly common occurrence. With them. And so they would lose connectivity, but because the edge device was there, and because we were storing the information and pushing it up to the central cloud repository, there were no issues. Another example is slightly more catastrophic, right? So I was doing some work with we'll call them a $100 to $300 million a year OEM, and they had 6 or 8 buildings, right? And so they had 6 or 8 buildings. As they grew over the previous 20 years, they would need more machines, and so they would build more buildings, and none of the buildings would be connected. And so we had gone through a process that was about 2 years old, upgrading machines, putting edge devices right on the critical machines so that we could do machine OEE, so that we could store data of critical machines, et cetera. And actually, sadly, at one point they were redoing the parking lot, and they severed one of the hardline server connections from the main building to building, I don't know, 7 or 8, right? And that would have been absolutely catastrophic for the organization, because it took like 2 weeks to get replaced, other than the fact that we were able to store locally the information on those machines, because they had track and trace and a whole bunch of other items set up for the meteorology of the metals as they were going through the machine. So I've seen that happen a number of times, so that there's the intrinsic, hey, look at all of this value that I can capture at the machine, and things that I may not have to push up to the cloud, and the kind of immediacy of the computation. But there's also the, hey, my business would collapse if something were to happen to the power or to the internet to this machine. And I see organizations that the larger the number of buildings they have and the more unstable their internet becomes, the more edge devices or backup servers they need across a facility in order to be safe.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Dave. Maybe, yeah, we're also coming up with some cool applications based on edge computing, industrial edge. We're also doing some proof of concepts. For example, we have this notifier app or speech assistant for machines. So, for example, making iPhone again as example, you can just call, "Hey Siri, what's the weather for today?" Right? So we have this app called SAM, Speech Assistant for Machines. So basically, you open the SAM app on your Edge platform, and then it's actually a web browser. So you can just open the browser and you talk to your PC, and then just say, "Hey Sam, can you let me know the production line, the machine status of this machine ABC?" Then that will send you all the desired information if the edge IPC is connected with your machine. So that's also something cool. We're trying to also expedite people to accept smart manufacturing is not too far. It's the next step. So we can get there like very soon. Yeah. And this is just one example. So if any of you have some cool ideas, cool applications, feel free to bring that to us, and we are more than happy to help you to deploy and publish your own apps.
Interesting. Any other like examples? I guess I'm curious if there's something going on in like robotics, maybe because we've talked earlier this year too. There's quite a bit of development in robotics specifically, and I know that Siemens works quite extensively with some of the manufacturers that you mentioned in the auto making space to simulate, but also create apps that make sense in like the industrial robotics space. I'm wondering if edge devices are heavily used there, and if not, are there some ideas, thoughts, maybe applications that are being developed?
Yeah, definitely. Like some of those like machine learning, like AI based applications. For example, like anomaly detection app. Even though that's not specifically for industrial robots, but anomaly detection definitely is a very powerful application. It's mainly designed for predictive maintenance. So you can run this anomaly detection app in real time, and it will also like analyze those like those data points and find out before your machine actually goes wrong. So that can enable the machine builders a lot of like massive amount of time and money. So then they can have this warning even before they have to schedule a maintenance. So then that saves them, that reduces the machine downtime as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting example. Again, I've heard that there's quite a few like proof of concept applications regarding AI machine learning.
Mm-hmm.
But I've personally not maybe like experienced them, so I'm really curious to see how it's gonna play out, right? If you're able to siphon out all the data of, again, let's use like a simple machine like a case packer or palletizer, then
Mm-hmm.
just processing the data and being able to predict what's the I guess like my imagination is that it would be a probability of shutting down in the next, let's say, like hour, 2 hours, like depending obviously on how well your facility is running, based on like historical data, but also real time information that some of those values are coming in with. So I think it's going to be like really interesting, and I think there's really no way to do that without like an edge device, right? It's going to have to be like your PLC is just generating those signals. You're going to siphon that out into the edge device. Maybe you can do some processing at the server level, but as we discussed a little bit off stream, is that it's not going to be fast enough to kind of respond to the information, and again, probably not always stable enough for all industries to kind of run in the server. So
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
it's going to be really interesting. Dave, thoughts?
I agree. I think that it's absolutely going to be more interesting. I appreciate the parallels that we've had so far chatting with Chris, as we did kind of when we talked about IIoT. And I think that as we go and explore this more, that we're going to see more and more people and reasons and use cases to have edge devices. As to if we have edge devices for store and forward, for backup capability, for instantaneous computation, that as Chris kind of talked about, we go figure out what's really important and then push those up to the cloud, and then we pay for know the cloud supercomputing capability to go run the analytics. I think it'll be very interesting. I think it'll absolutely be very interesting, and I feel like this is going to help that group that we've had forever that talks about not wanting to just kind of go push their data to the cloud, right? They want to have a physical copy of their data. You know, they want to be able to do as much as they can immediately where they have it. So I think that is very interesting, and I think that kind of takes me to the next question that I have for Chris, and I prepared him for this because as I ask everyone, I want to know, Chris, what do you think that the future of edge or of the edge ecosystem is going to look like?
Yeah, I think there's going to be still like a lot of more opportunities for edge, right? As I mentioned earlier, there are already edge dedicated IPCs designed and developed by Siemens, but
Mm-hmm.
we also like vision if there's any like external edge devices, they can also be equipped with our industrial edge OS, industrial edge runtime.
Mm-hmm.
So that is to say, you can install Apple iOS on an Android phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're not like essentially competing against all the other like edge device builders, the edge device like manufacturers, but we're aiming to build this entire IoT ecosystem using with our industrial edge solution. So that is from like the hardware side. From the
Mm-hmm.
software side, also, we have our Siemens design developed applications, and I believe so far there are over 45 applications already available for purchase and officially supported by Siemens. You can find them all on our Siemens Digital Exchange. However, like I say, there are some functionalities or opportunities that maybe us at Siemens we're not aware of. So that's why those IT driven startups or solution partners they can step in and bring their values to our platform. And so that is just the edge side. And with the connections enabled by edge, there's also a lot more functions, use cases can be created on the cloud side. So for example, Siemens just acquired a company called SenseI, which is a
Okay.
cloud-based like anomaly detection or predictive maintenance solution providers. But we know edge would be the key tools to enable the connections to make the data at the plant accessible, transparent. So that's the first
Mm-hmm.
step. Yeah, and after that, that a lot of more functionalities can be enabled, can be achieved. Yeah. So right now, it's really just the start. But if you want to have a rocket.
Sounds like we've lost Chris momentarily again. Dave, I guess before we throw him the closing questions, I
Yep.
do want to give him a last hard question to consider, perhaps, and that's
Ah.
the topic of cybersecurity, right? So I think, as he even alluded to, there was some pushback at one of the customers that he gave as an example, and I think all of us are, well, at least a lot of us in the manufacturing space are starting to take cybersecurity more and more seriously. Chris, yes, we did lose you for a second. I
Sorry
was
about
telling
that.
Dave, before we throw you kind of the boilerplate questions, I
Uh,
wanted to also ask you the topic of cybersecurity, and you mentioned that that was one of the pushbacks maybe from one of your customers. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on cybersecurity when it comes to edge devices? As we introduce more and more of these in the field, you think there is a potential, I guess, like issue with them being, again, like leveraged for a malicious intent? Is there steps taken? I would assume so, but are there steps taken above and beyond what we would expect, especially on the industrial grade side? Like, what are your thoughts on cybersecurity when it comes to edge devices in general?
yeah, I mean, we've actually encountered like many customers, where edge computing is actually the only solution forward to like let's say maintain their uh, preferred level of security. And like I said earlier, so if you have edge computing implemented, that means you own the data. You don't have to rely on third-party cloud or third-party IT guys to manage the data for you. And at the end of the day, when the customers owns the infrastructure, then they have a lot more control all over the data, like flows in and flows out through their entire plan. So if if you are, let's say, if you are like CIO, if you're like CTO of a company, so cybersecurity is definitely the most concerned issue. But we have three components inside of the edge portfolio. So edge device is like the bottom part, which is placed at the production level, and they are like industrial grade. So and then there's on your shop floor level, there's a industrial edge management that's a central plan. So that also requires license and multi-function layer. So that is very.
Oh, it looks like Chris froze for just a moment. But I agree. I think cybersecurity is I think it's very important. Excuse me. I think it's very important, and I think we're going to have more people looking and interested on how they can leverage devices like this, right? So I guess in theory, if there could be cyber issues at one of your cloud hosted platforms and you're still able to run your facility, right? I think that that's going to become more and more important as as we look into the future. Oh, but we've got Chris back. We were just saying how we agree that I think cyber and being able to run during a potential cyber issue is only going to become more important in the future. Chris.
Correct. Yeah. I'm not sure like where was I where was
Second
I
layer,
earlier?
second layer from the stack.
So certain we're talking about like IEM, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So IEM is also like placed in the factory level in your production level and running on premises, and it comes equips with multi-layer authentication. So it requires logging, requires license. And on the cloud level, we have Industrial Edge Hub, which is like IEH, where you purchase those apps from Siemens Digital Exchange, and then those apps will be pushed download to your IEH, Industrial Edge Hub. And then if you have, you have different deployments, different use cases, then you can push these apps further down to specific IEM images. And then since you have multiple edge devices connect to a single IEM, then it is also very flexible of your choice to further push down those desired apps to specific IEDs from the IEMs. So this is pretty much like the structure, the layers architecture of why industrial edge is very secure and reliable.
Makes sense. Dave, any final thoughts, questions before we give Chris our usual boilerplate stuff?
No, I think Chris did an amazing job, kind of walking us through that and setting up everything that we're talking about. So this is amazing, Chris. I know that after this first 60 or 70 minutes of talking about edge ecosystems, that one, it's going to be a great theme, and two, I'm not sure how we're going to talk about it all in only 4 weeks. But that's always a good problem to have. That is always a good problem to have. So thank you so much for that, Chris. I guess I have two kind of content questions for you. One, you listed a couple of really good. You list industrial-edge.io. Can you go ahead and relist kind of the industrial edge and all of those other edge places to go find information if we've missed some of them, please?
Of course, yeah. So definitely, if you're very interested about industry this technology, you can just simply go to our website, Siemens Industrial Edge website. So that also has a lot of resources. For example, our upcoming webinars where we will give everyone like a live demo, some status updates. So we will cover a few applications. For example, the performance insight and how the data is being transferred from your shop floor to the cloud. And we will also talk about, like I said earlier, bringing the third-party app to our edge platform and how to use them. So you can find those on our Siemens website. Apart from that, there's also like industrial edge, like a couple of industry edge forum. So for us, we also have like a GitHub, available. Like you can just basically search industrial edge, which is already available. And apart from that, I can also paste a few like website links that I used to browse through and get some more fresh insights from, and then I can share that with you guys.
Yes, please. That would be fantastic. So everyone can go ahead and check back, and we should also have those in the show notes if you guys are listening on podcast form. Beyond that, Chris, I know that you've got a couple of book recommendations. No, wait, hold on. Vlad's got a question.
I was gonna ask, I guess, just to clarify, the GitHub. What is the scope of that repository? Because I'm looking at it now. I guess there's a lot of different applications developed. Is it by Siemens or by third parties? What's the? Like, I'm just curious.
So so we actually have. If you just search in GitHub.com industrial hyphen edge, so that's where some third-party apps, and there's also some like public resources. If you see like performance analytics and shop floor to cloud connectivity, developer guide hands on app. So these are the three that we call starting application scenarios that is also part of our go-to-market strategy. That's because we consider these are the three use cases that can expedite the first timer, first time or new users who are not very familiar about edge computing or industry edge platform. This can expedite their learning curve and get them up to speed. So if you just go to the GitHub page, so the three on the main page will be your go-to sites, and then there's S7 connector data handling getting started. So that's more focusing on S7 connectors. So how do you get those connectors up and running on an edge device?
Okay, well, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chris. And then I get the other question is, I know you've got a book recommendation or two for us. So
Yes.
what excuse me, what do you have?
So this book is in Chinese, but it has an English version. It's called Smart Manufacturing System and Practice. It's actually written by like Naiming Liang, who is actually Siemens software engineer in China. Yeah.
Okay.
I think he works at one of the smart factory in China. It's actually in Chengdu, where a lot of our Sematic products are manufactured there. Yeah.
Okay.
In the book,
what's the full title, Chris? Sorry again. Smart Manufacturing.
Smart Manufacturing System and Practices.
Okay.
Yep. And I mean, in the book, it talks about smart manufacturing solutions, digital twin, like the one you are interested in, Vlad. It also talks about like some other smart manufacturing process like MES, MOM. It also talks about like SCADA, Edge, so ERP, POMs, a lot of stuff related to what Siemens is involved in the entire factory automation, process automation field. So it's a very interesting book. And another book maybe I can share with you guys is actually you can find this like broadview.com. So this is mainly just about edge computing. It's also in Chinese, but you can find it on www.broadview.com. So it's edge computing, application, and the technology. Yeah. So this also discuss a lot about Docker, about the container technology. Also like IO because this one was written by I think Intel R&D back in their
Okay.
APAC region. So it is also like a fun book to read if you are trying to get some more knowledge on app development. So that could be a awesome book.
Awesome.
No, very, very good. I appreciate that. Vlad, book question for you. How many of those 150 Audible books that you took as recommendations did you listen to over vacation?
Only a couple. The main one being is After Steve. So it's an interesting
Yeah.
book, having kind of like referenced Apple a couple times, kind of like how Apple is changing its mentality after Steve Jobs has
Mhm.
passed away, and it's actually it goes really in depth into like the different backgrounds of the people at the C-suite of Apple. So very interesting. I can't remember who it was that recommended it, but
I
certainly,
don't remember. Yeah.
it
I
did
remember
come
it
up,
was a
like, on the
good
show.
recommendation.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't
Very,
remember.
very
I
interesting.
remember it was. Yeah, no, no, that sounds good. I'm happy to hear that we have a thumbs up for that. Chris, question for you. You have an interesting path that you've taken to get into manufacturing, industrial automation, kind of edge everything. So we'd love to know your career advice. So if you've got an early to mid career person either looking to get into automation manufacturing to start with, or maybe making a career change, what are your suggestions for them?
All right. So back when I was at Purdue, so I actually got a very good opportunity to work for a company, Lens and Gear, as a student co-op. I think that's where I get a lot of hands-on experience in like R&D, and also because I was just a test engineer, and
Mm-hmm.
but just from that, when I was in college, I don't even know what should I do like after I graduated. So with my experience at Landis and Gear, that kind um, like shape my career. So this is so
Mm-hmm.
electrical engineer. This manufacturing is like the career path that I would like to take. Um, so I would strongly recommend if you are still in like college, maybe try
Mm-hmm.
to gain some like real work experience. I know some of you, yeah, okay, I get a part-time job at a restaurant uh, or a bookstore. But if you are like an engineer, or if you are let's say a programmer, so I would say get some more hands-on relevant and work experience, and then that can help you to make the decision. Hey, which career, which industry I can step into, and I would say also if you're passionate, like go with your passion. Yeah. For example, like I quit my other job when COVID hits the industry, which
Mm-hmm.
that's something out of everyone's control. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of going to a similar industry, I know where I'm passionate about, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like IT, and edge computing actually is a new technology. A lot of people, very experienced people, they have tons of experience knowledge about
Mm-hmm.
programming, about some IT, cloud, but that's been said. Edge could be a new technology for uh, our millennial, or like people at a similar age. If you got the same passion, if you got the same uh, mindset, I would say, yeah, the edge computing world is a good platform, a good way where you can uh, make yourself shine.
And I think it's also, if I may, like an interesting transition for I want to say like that subset of people who played with Raspberry Pis and Arduinos, right? And I'll tell you personally that I kind of stumbled in manufacturing, I want to say, because I've just applied to a lot of different positions, but I was not as aware of, I want to say, a path from, again, loving electronics, but finding a role in manufacturing that makes sense in that regard, right? And I want to say electrical engineering opens a lot of doors, but they're not always obvious, or they're not always kind of presented to. So I think like being an edge slash IoT is a really interesting path and combination between like hardware and software. So I think it's a really cool position to be in for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's great advice. I think co-op. I think we've had the co-op engineering conversation a number of times, and I think everyone who has mentioned it speaks highly of it. So if you are in college and have somehow managed to stumble across this show, uh, doing a co-op or taking a 5-year engineering program and doing a co-op, everyone that I've known who has done it speaks very highly of it. And Chris, last question for you is who should reach out? Who do you want to connect with? Who do you want to talk to? This is kind of your opportunity to go and ask whatever you'd like to ask.
All right, thank you, Dave. Yeah, so like I said, if you are you're not an existing integrators or solution partners with Siemens, don't worry about it, because Edge is such an open platform, and we would like to open the door for everyone who's willing to bring your cool ideas, your own applications, or if you are you're just interested about Industrial Edge, this platform, and you want to, make use of it. You're a machine builders, you're a plant operators. Feel free to reach out to us. We can help you to get started with your IoT journey in a very fast and easy way.
Awesome.
I love it. Thank you very much, Chris, for being here. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And thank you, Siemens, for sponsoring this episode in September. If you guys have made it this far and are somehow not following the Manufacturing Hub LinkedIn page, not following Vlad, myself, not subscribed to the podcast, what are you doing with your life? I have learned that if I ask people to subscribe and download podcasts and rate us 5 stars, we continue to have more and more people and more listens over the course of every month, right? And it's been 5 or 6 months that we're doing that. So I think that there is a direct correlation to me remembering to ask the question and you guys actually doing the thing. So if you haven't gone and subscribed, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe. We will be back every Wednesday in the month of September, going and talking about edge devices. Until next week, we'll see everyone soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you, guys.
Thank you.